We are live. We are live. Hope everybody is having a good Sunday night here with Strabo Rama. What's
What's up?
going on tonight?
What's up, Sergeant Horror? I'm ready to rock and roll and talk some independent filmmaking. So I'm excited to talk to you tonight. So thank you for having me on.
Man, I'm glad to have you on. If a lot of people don't know, Jamie here is the chairman and director of the Mad Monster Film Festival for over a decade now. Oof. And that's not an easy job, so I commend you on that.
Well, thank you.
And running a film festival is hard work, and working with independent filmmakers is hard work, and making independent films is hard work.
All of those things. Yes. Yeah. The biggest problem with running the film fest is that filmmakers don't follow directions. If they would just follow directions, it would be a lot easier. It's like you try to send them everything and they just don't read it. So it's like, oh, well, what do you do?
I don't think nobody follows directions this day and age. I think it's just like everybody's on their own program.
Yes,
If everybody followed directions, then life would be really easy.
Yes, it was.
Hey, Scott, what's going on? Scott Monster Perry in the house. Can't wait to see him at the expo.
The Mad Monster fan, number one Mad Monster fan. He should be a featured guest at the next anniversary show because that dude's in everything.
He lives in West Virginia near this bridge. I think it's called the New River Gorge.
Okay.
And I was in West Virginia and nobody warned me about this thing. So I'm just driving like, oh, these mountains are pretty. Oh. And then you see the sign that's like gorge ahead. So I'm like, I wonder what's a gorge. A gorge is pretty much you in a damn airplane. Like the bridge was like, you feel like you're in an airplane. You're up there with the clouds when you go over this bridge. It's the most horrific thing I've ever experienced.
Yeah, there's some steep drop-offs up that way. Yes, indeed.
And apparently everybody goes to the bridge once a year and has a party and they jump off of it with that parajump and all that stuff. Ooh,
That's
not
what
me.
we do. That's what we do in the South. We're crazy like that. I've jumped off a few bridges myself, so
No, not I.
Not anymore though. I'm getting too many.
She said, "There's my piggy love." She must be talking about GJ.
I think she's talking about you.
Said, "Hey, sir, what's up, straight bow around?"
What's up?
William says, "Boo, what's up, William?"
The boo must be from me.
Vicky says, "Howdy, howdy, Vicky." He says, "Now I cross the bridge twice a day." You got nerves still, Scott. Ooh.
Explains why he's a horror fan, because he's dealt with real life horror.
That is it. They ought to be a sign up there that says caution. If you're scared of heights, turn the hell around, because this is a gorge, and a gorge is huge. But now they just like gorge ahead like it's casual. It's no big deal to them.
Yeah.
He says, "Love you guys. We love you too."
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, let me ask you this, Jane. Like, what do you think? Like, let's talk about with everybody. We get on these live feeds a lot of times and we talk about horror movies and, we talk about the Halloween Kills that's coming out. Very exciting. We talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre and things like that. But there's a lot of independent horror films that are out there that can't get the word out.
Mm-hmm.
And what advice would you have for people that want to find good independent horror films? Like, where do you go to when you're looking to watch some good independent horror films?
Okay, well, I have answers for all these. I mean, to find them, you just go to your horror community. The main one I used to go to was the IMDb horror board, because it was essentially, people from all across the world. You'd be talking to people in Poland, in the southern U.S. Like you, and or people in Canada, Mexico. I mean, just everywhere. And I mean, that's really how you do it, is you have to find your community. And the IMDb, the boards were so toxic, they actually shut them down about 5 or 6 years ago. They just took that whole feature away, which is a shame, because you could find so much just great information. Like, one of the favorite things I found on there, is a slight tangent, was an interview with Lucio Fulci's screenwriter, and it was just posted in the boards under one of his films. And this isn't even in a publication. So when they took the forums down, that just disappeared. So a lot of groups have migrated to like Facebook or Reddit or what have you. Like, you can actually find a lot of the people that were on the IMDb horror board over on Facebook if you just search for it, or like the Mad Monster group, or listen to your favorite podcasts, like your stuff, or when I do mine, MVP Mutant Radio or other groups. Just ask around. Or if you go to conventions and especially like with our film festival, I mean, that's what we do, is we feature independent filmmakers. I mean, and that's something I've been, really proud to just be a part of over the past, decade, going plus now. Just go and see what you see. I mean, when we put those festivals together, I mean, I stand by it. I mean, I try not to put something in there I wouldn't watch. If you sit down and watch it, I want you to feel like you got your money's worth for whatever it was. Just ask around, find you a group, whatever. Nowadays there are meetup groups. Like here in North Carolina, there's one of the groups I'm in is the Triangle Horror Group, where people will talk on Meetup, they'll talk on Facebook, they'll plan movie outings. So when they find out something's being released, like or something might be playing locally, like at the Back Alley Film Series in Charlotte, I might pop on and go, hey guys, they're playing Troll Hunter, or they're playing this, or they're playing that. This is worth checking out. And just ask around. And if you know something, let people know.
And guys, as you guys watching this, please share this. If you're, making sure you go over to our YouTube channel and you're liking and subscribing on the YouTube channel. We're going to have a lot of content from the expo coming up on there. We're going to have some exclusive lives that are on the YouTube channel. We just gave away tickets for an advanced screening of Candyman. I announced the winners and gave those away today. And if you have a favorite independent horror movie, drop a comment and let us know what your favorite is. I know a lot of people like Terrifier. I personally liked Art the Clown better than the movie, because I think Art the Clown is a great character. It kind of transcends the film. It was like, I'd like to see him in a boss fight with somebody like Art the Clown versus, what about Art versus Pennywise? I mean, I don't know. I kind of want to see him versus somebody.
Right. Well, I would consider Terrifier even a little bit higher tier independent filmmaking. I mean, because they got pretty good distribution. But there's like just a ton of like lower, no budget stuff, which is like what I consider my stuff, where I don't have backers or anything. It's just, it's the group you get together, the people you get that are willing to work with you, the money that you put into it from your day job, that no budget stuff, and you can find some real gems. I mean, the film fest, if it's taught me anything, it's taught me that when people succeed, it's a miracle. It's a miracle because it is hard to stand out from the crowd, but I'm sure you'll get more into it. But my advice is always just make the best thing you can in that instance, so the work speaks for itself.
Yeah, I agree, because and it's tough, because one thing I noticed. Let me start with this. When you try to hire, the biggest thing that I think the indie horror has going against it is, and I'm not going to get political or anything like that, but you have this thing called a Screen Actors Guild. Mm-hmm. And unless you a signatory to the Screen Actors Guild, you can't use SAG actors.
Right.
Now, the Screen Actors Guild considered anything under $2 million to be low budget horror. Now, to me, if you got $2 million, you can make a pretty good daggone horror movie for $2 million. I mean,
yeah, That's
Hey,
not
it's
my budget.
what it is. You know,
Yeah,
Adam says, "Hey, let Halloween come. I'm ready."
it's coming.
Halloween, the holiday or the movie?
Probably both.
I don't know. For me, every day seems like Halloween. It's just like when it's actually October the 31st, it's just Halloween for regular people.
That's
So,
correct.
so I mean, SAG kind of, I get what they do. They protect actors to make sure they have medical benefits, but it kind of handicaps the little guys that are trying to create a project that they can't use SAG actors in it at all. And he did say both. You're right. And he's got a Santa suit on. I love it, Adam. I love it.
Yeah,
Dressing as Santa for Halloween. That's priceless.
it makes it difficult. Like say you want to get somebody like a Kane Hodder in your film, it makes it impossible for somebody like me to get it into one of my works. I mean, you can get like lower tier SAG actors to come and work on. I mean, I've had plenty that will do that. I'm not sure how they handle it on their end. I don't know.
They just do it and hope they don't get reported, which it is what it is. But I mean, that's one thing. And then, like you said, distribution is extremely hard because if the movie is too violent, then a lot of distributors don't want, and a lot of streaming services. I don't know if you guys watching this know, a lot of streaming services, Amazon, Tubi, Netflix is not even picking up any independent horror. And if you go into Walmart, like I was in Walmart the other day, believe it or not. Yep. If y'all see me in Walmart, come up and say hi. We'll take a picture. I go into Walmart all the time. I got to get groceries somewhere. Walmart, y'all need to pay me for that endorsement now. They don't carry any hardly. If you're not in a super Walmart, they only maybe have 4 shelf spots for indie horror. And the guys that are in Walmart probably aren't actually getting paid because distributors are stiffing a lot of these lower end, I shouldn't say lower end, a lot of these lower budget horror movies. These distributors are scooping them up and not paying them.
That is a real tragedy because if you follow Netflix, they built their streaming service on no budget horror films. I mean, I got to watch one of my favorite no budget films, Dawn by Jay Reel, which is it's an atypical vampire film. I highly recommend it to everybody. And it was right there on Netflix. The thing is media is always changing. Marshall McLuhan's laws of media is that the new media makes old media obsolete. So you just have to accept that. It's going to happen. But it's constantly changing, constantly evolving. And it's by going to things like the expo or talking to people in your circle or in your interests, you learn about, how do I keep up with it? How do I get to the next thing? So now Netflix is not taking any kind of independent works, but what is Shudder taking? What can you get onto something like Tubi? Or if there isn't anything, then there's kind of a vacuum, and then hopefully somebody will step up and create a service and go, hey, you know what, we can all do this together. Which, I mean, I've seen several attempts to do that. I think Shudder is probably the most successful one right now.
And Daniel says, Sarge, what's up? What's up, Daniel? Norman says, what's up, Killer Clown? What's up, Big Norm? Adam says, thanks for liking my photo. Can't help but like it. Danny says, hi, Danny.
Hello.
I'm doing Big Frank for Halloween.
Nice.
Hi, Sarge. Hi, Dan. Hey. And you guys, what is your favorite independent horror movie? I mean, because there's a ton of them out there. I mean, and like you said, a lot of the ones that I learn about, I find them at Ed Mad Monster. I see a vendor that's like, they took a camera, they took their friends as actors, they went out there on what budget they could get together, and they shot what they could shoot. And then even you get some people that we recognize, like Hannah from VHS. She was on the live stream. They were doing a movie with Felissa. They were trying to crowdfund a movie, and they've done pretty good with that, the Peepin' Tom movie, and I think they've reached over 200 backers, which is good. It is, and that's where most of the horror movies that are iconic horror movies, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, George Romero's Night of the Living, all that stuff was independent movies.
Exactly. Those are really the first that will pop to mind for me. George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, Evil Dead, Halloween. Speaking at the low, kind of no budget level. I mean, we have some great filmmakers in the area. I'll shout one out, Tommy Faircloth from South Carolina. He's done several really good films. He's had Felissa in one, in a couple, I think, actually. What was his last one called? Family something. I don't know. I'm blanking on the name now. Sorry, but Tommy does really great work. I mean, all of his features have been really strong, and we've always featured his work. We're happy to play his films anytime he submits to the festival.
If Tracy says hello, Tracy.
Hello.
I mean, you look at Blair Witch was an independent film that they went out and shot out, and it sparked a whole different style of filmmaking.
That's a good one to look at, especially the promotion around it and the way they did that, where they came out and they basically said these filmmakers were actually missing. I mean, that was how I heard about it. It was like people would come up to me in the wild, not talking about at a convention at Mad Monster, where we're all there doing the same thing, but in the wild, like at work or at your school or what have you. And people would come up to me and they'd be like, "Did you hear about that movie where all the actors disappeared? They don't know what happened to them." And that was how I first got into Blair Witch. And, I went and watched it. And of course, you learned about it later that, they didn't really disappear. But you still have people telling you, like, wow, they never found those actors. I'm like, dude, yes, they did. That's just promotion. But those are kind of, those I think are good case studies for people that want to promote, is to look at the success they had and not necessarily try to duplicate it, but figure out how to make it your own. Like Paranormal Activity basically did the same thing all over again, 20 years later or what have you. Maybe it's 10 years later,
And my thing is said from recent indie horror, I was a fan of It Follows.
Good film.
Ray said, "Love you guys, love you too." One of our Madam Monsters there.
Yeah, nice picture.
And you have different tiers, because technically you can define independent film as anything outside of the studio. But you have well-financed independent movies like It Follows, which was done with a several $million budget. And then you have, stuff that was done with very little budgets. One of the very, what I think is a great success story was the Poughkeepsie tapes. It's another found footage film, kind of mockumentary. It got bought by a lot of money. Oh my God, Lola Starr just, what's up, Lois? What's up, fellas? What's up, Lois? She just, Spree wasn't that great. A ton of people liked it, but I liked Spree. Drake produced Spree. I forgot about that. My mind goes off to the rapper Drake with the rapper Future actually produced a horror movie, and it was kind of, but it wasn't bad. I mean, it was
the thing about horror is it's very subjective. People, that's just one thing. Like, you have this vast spectrum of everything from The Exorcist on one end to Toxic Avenger on the other end, and it's all falls under this umbrella of horror. And how it hits us, it really seems to depend on where you are in your life when you watch it.
I think we lost Jamie for a minute. Liz says Butchers was pretty good. I agree.
Did the screen drop? I loaded up for a second there. So, okay.
You said
so it's all
where you were in your life.
Yeah. So it's just subjective, So, like what you like, and other people are going to like what they like. And I just try not to put down what other people enjoy,
Yeah, I mean, I think what does that say? One man's junk is another man's treasure. Exactly. One man's crappy horror movie is another man's, good horror movie. But
exactly.
I don't mind calling out a studio when it makes a turd, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
because sometimes I feel like that the studios take us horror fans for granted, and they block out independent horror filmmakers. You know, back in the day, what they used to do is if you had a vampire script and they were getting ready to make Twilight, they would option your script and they would shelf your movie and make their movie. And now they just ignore you and kind of block you out of the whole thing. Um, Andrea says hi, Andrea.
Hello.
And it's tough because we as a horror community have to decide. We have to balance it. We understand we love studio pictures when they make good pictures, but we also need to foster the future of horror, which is in the independent community. And you know, my opinion, which a lot of time isn't, you know, I shouldn't say it isn't popular among some, is if you're an independent filmmaker, you got to bring it.
Exactly.
I understand you don't have the biggest steady cam and you don't have 20 people in your crew, but you know, I go back and I watch Robert Rodriguez and El Mariachi, and I'm like, he did an amazing job. He made mistakes, but he did an amazing job.
Right, and he did a lot of smart things. I mean, he kept it in Spanish to make it a foreign film to appeal to art snobs. He made it black and white to appeal to the college crowd, you know. And then it's just a kick-ass action film, you know. So yeah, he did everything he needed to do. But yeah, you have to bring it. You have to make the best work that you can.
Well, it says Spree was well done. Actors was amazing. Joe Curry is a great actor. Autopsy of Jane Doe is well done. I remember watching that in the bowels of the ship while deployed. Worst idea. Yeah, Autopsy of Jane Doe was a good independent film when it came out. It's on the higher end of the spectrum, you know. And I tend to, you know, you could quickly tell when somebody is making an independent horror movie and they're trying versus when somebody's just like, let me make a movie so I can say I made a movie. You know, you could tell those that are creative and they gave it their best. And like a lot of times people will send me movies and like review this or review that. And I'm not ever, you'll never see me if somebody scraped up money and made a movie in their backyard and they had mistakes, there's no way you could review that and judge that on the same caliber as Autopsy of Jane Doe or, you know, somebody that had a $250,000, $300,000 budget.
No,
I mean, you know, a lot
criteria.
Yeah, a lot of these companies spend more money in craft services for food, more money in food than some of these independent horror movies spend on their whole thing.
Yep, they do. Yeah, you have to put everything into it. You know, I encourage people to be original, just be fearless with your creativity, tell the story that you want to tell, you know, and really put it out there. You were talking about support as the horror community. I'm telling you, I have a love-hate relationship with basically any fan community because there is no such thing as a team. I don't know if you remember when the Feast series came out, you know, back in the mid 2000s. It's spun out of Project Greenlight. You know, it was like the third season. John Gulager worked on it. And I really enjoyed that season. And I thought, you know, when Feast was coming out, I thought, man, this is great, especially compared to the films of the time. You know, it's definitely low budget, independent. And they tried to just kind of put all this kind of crazy frenetic action back into it, almost like, you know, a modern kind of Evil Dead. And I used to go around and just beat the drum, telling people like, let's go out and see this. Let's see it in the theater, you know, and yeah, I would do that in the communities, and the response was just crickets. I mean, nobody gave a shit, you know. So it's like, I don't know what to do. I mean, yeah, sometimes films will capture everybody's imagination, and people will support it. And sometimes that's a good thing, and then sometimes it might be a bad thing. Like people got mad at films like Hatchet because it had a big following, and then they go and watch it, and they're like, "Well, this is just like a Friday the 13th film. I don't see what the big deal is." So, I don't know.
I mean, I don't blame Adam and Kane for doing Hatchet, because if Sean and them Victor and Sean want to be in court and they want to, fight over the rights of Jason Voorhees and, miss out on all that money that they could have shared, then, it is what it is. And I think there's a certain amount of horror fans that want to see Kane Hodder be Jason again. But then I think there's a certain number of people in the studios that want to cast a different type of Jason. It's a lot of stuff that ticks me off. Like, yeah. And then when you look at this new Halloween, I'm glad that they put Nick Castle in there, even though it's only for a few minutes. He's gonna be at the expo. I've never met him, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I really enjoyed his panel when he came a few years ago. Actually, the year that they made that Halloween. Yeah, that's David Gordon Green. David Gordon Green and and the other guy, Kenny Powers. Yeah, those guys are fans, so that's why they did that. I mean, they brought in Jamie Lee Curtis and Nick Castle and stuff, and that's what it takes. But the studios, I mean, they don't want to pay Kane Hodder more. I mean, maybe if Kane Hodder just took a day rate or something, I mean, maybe they would put him in it. But I don't know. It always comes down to money. The studios don't care; they'll just replace you.
And Nicole says, "Can't wait to the Mad Monster Expo." Yeah, and we're going to have a ton of classes. They're going to be releasing the schedule soon. They're going to have all kinds of classes. They're going to have independent filmmaking classes. They're going to have paranormal classes, haunt classes. It's going to be exciting. I would say Scream 3 or Scream 3. Michelle says, "Hey, Michelle."
Hey.
It's a difficult. When a lot of people tell me they want to make a movie, I'm like, "Are you sure?"
You want to spend the next 3 years of your life to do this and then get no response and have everybody shit on it when you're asking for feedback? Because that's what it takes. You have to be willing to do that. You have to be willing to put yourself out there like that and take the criticism. That's one reason I don't like to review films at all. I mean, because number one, I'm a creative person. I just want to tell stories, I mean, if film is one medium, I'm not necessarily interested in reviewing. But people take reviews seriously. I mean, if you try to give them any constructive criticism, they take it real personal. And if you're kind of effusive with your praise, people just ignore it. They're just like, if they don't agree with it, they just ignore it. They're just like, this guy's crazy. So it's a no-win situation doing reviews. At least for me.
I like reviewing movies from studios because they had budgets, they know better. And a lot of times, I try to tell people, a lot of times a director for a studio will turn in a picture and the producers at the studio will screw it up. Like they'll have a test screening because they have them all the time in LA. And if that doesn't screen well with the test screening, they'll recut it and redo it and not even include the director. So the picture the director turned in has nothing to do. And then what they'll do, they'll wait about 3 or 4 years and go over to Shouter Screen Factory, repackage it, throw some extra features in it, call it a steel book, and try to sell it to us for $200-$300,
Yeah. Studios deserve all the criticism that they get. I mean, because they have the money, they have the talent, they have the people behind it. So, I mean, they deserve all the criticism they can get, But at the independent level, I try to be as supportive as possible and see the positive in everything.
Jim says, "Hey guys, I also like the director's cuts of movies more than the theatrical. How about you guys? I'm assuming I do. I think when you hire a director, if you're a producer, if you're executive producer, let me dumb it. I shouldn't say dumb it down. Let me simplify it. You got $2 million. You want to make a movie. You buy a script. then you're like, okay, I got money. I don't direct films. Let me hire a director. If you hire a John Carpenter or hire a Marcus Dunstan or hire whoever, you're trusting them that that they see the vision that you want. You're the money guy. You don't need to overstep your boundaries and come in and try to be the creative guy. If you were the creative guy and you had the money, you should have just made the film.
Exactly.
But a lot of times these studios, it's like they vote on it with test groups. Oh, did we offend anybody? Did we offend this person? If you're going to make a horror movie and you don't offend somebody, you're probably not making a good horror movie. You know? I mean, what do you think, Jamie?
The same with horror and comedy. I mean, you have to offend people. That's what makes this kind of modern era a bit just insane, because you know, people are so easily offended. You know, that's one reason I really enjoyed Project Greenlight, especially the third season, where they set out to make a horror film. Like, if people haven't seen that, I recommend checking it out. And if you run across a bootleg video of it, some of those are my original videos. I was actually contacted by people that know Gulager and stuff out in LA, because they wanted the series, and it was never released, you know, and I just had it recorded, and I just sent them recordings and stuff. So some of those are actually mine. But it showed the studio process behind it. At the time, it was Dimension Films, which is part of Miramax. You know, Wes Craven was a producer, and they were talking about Dimension Films and how they were going to change the name. And you can hear Wes Craven in this party scene yell out in the background, "Dementia!" She had to change it to Dementia because they're so crazy, the kind of feedback that they give you. You know, as horror filmmakers, you want to offend people. You want to make something that it reaches people at their core. You know, sometimes that means being crazy and transgressive, you know, something like a Human Centipede or what have you. But I mean, you just have to try all kinds of different things, you know. And I'm just chilled by these horror stories with guys like Wes Craven, where he'll talk about films that he made, like Deadly Friend or something like that had so much studio interference, where he kept getting these notes back from either the studio or from the MPAA, or like on Shocker, you know, he had to keep editing Shocker, where they're like, well, this is too violent. And it's like, what do you mean it's too violent? I mean, you want it to be violent, but so it's crazy. I mean, and that's one of the great things about independent films that break away outside of that studio system, is that they can go all the way and not have to fear repercussions from the studio, or fear repercussions from the MPAA about a rating. You just make the film and you just put it out there, and if it's good, people will respond to it.
Yeah. Shane says, "What's up? What's up, Shane?"
What's up?
James says, "What's up, Sarge? What's up, James?" And Ryan says, "Good evening, Sarge, Dan, and live chat." What's going on?
I'm Steve or Jamie. I don't know who Dan is, but yeah.
I don't know, Dan. Halloween 6 producer's cut thoughts. I don't. It don't ring a bell to me. I can't.
I like it better than the actual theatrical cut. I like it a little bit better. The earlier question was, do you prefer theatrical cut versus the director's cut? And, you know, and that really just depends on the film, you know. I mean, because some, if they are the real director's cut, they usually are better. But then in some cases, the directors will kind of fuck up their own movie. Like one case in point, not horror, but kind of tangentially related as a genre film, is The Warriors. I mean, when they did the director's cut of that, I mean, he added in all these comic book transitions and stuff. And I was just like, yeah, this was better off just left the way it was, you know, kind of gritty and grimy, and not adding these kind of 4-color tones to it.
Steve says, "What's good, everybody?"
All good.
Ryan says, "My bad. Think I got her damn name wrong."
It's okay. Don't sweat it.
My thing is like a lot of times, like I've seen some of Rob Zombie's when he's turned in his cut versus the theatrical cut, and I've kind of liked Rob's cut better than the theatrical cut. But it's kind of a toss up. It just depends on what kind of pushback they get and what kind of film they're trying to put out to the theaters. I kind of like it now that everything's going to VOD. I mean, it's just I like the premium VOD where I don't have to go out anywhere. I can just get it, and I think that's better. I think Disney's kind of off the mark on that $29.99 price point. I think that's a little high. They need to go back down. They need to go down to $19.99.
They're trying to make a stopgap measure there because they're losing money. Yeah.
Yeah, and but when they're paying, they got a lot of A-list stars that they're putting a lot of money behind, and would you? I don't know. It's when you're making a lower budget indie horror movie for less than $100,000, it's a gamble. But these studios, when they're releasing a picture, typically to put a picture in 1,300 theaters, you're spending about $20 million in advertising alone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, God only knows. I think my guess is they probably have spent more on advertising for Halloween Kills than they did on production.
Probably so. It's usually, you generally just double the budget with most production studios. You double it and say, okay, they did an additional X amount for their promotion. Speaking about the theatrical experience versus video on demand, I love the theatrical experience, but I feel like modern generations don't have it. They kind of don't understand it, and they've kind of ruined it for everybody else because they're too busy talking on their phone. We were talking about Rob Zombie, when I went to see Halloween 2 at the theater, I saw it a second time. I saw it when it first opened, and then I saw it again near the end of the run. I was just like, I want to go see it again. And so I saw it at a smaller theater where it's one of those, like a 16 theater building, and they have those smaller ones. This has like maybe 5 rows in a single theater, small one. So it was myself and a couple. So it was 2 other people in front of me. And the girl gets on her phone in the middle of it. And I had to just yell at her. And she's like, excuse me? And I was like, yeah, you heard me. I'm the only other person in here. You are being rude to me, shining your phone, And I was waiting for her boyfriend to say something because I was going to kick him in his head and push him back down. But it didn't come to that. But modern audiences have really ruined the theatrical experience. I mean, that's the best way to enjoy a film. I mean, especially for horror films. I mean, you see how the group reacts to it. People will jump and scream and or yell at the they yell at the screens. I mean, sometimes that's funny and sometimes it's not. But I always dig it when audiences will be like, "Girl, don't do that." They yell at them. As a filmmaker, that's one thing I encourage all the filmmakers submitting to the festival is you need to come and watch it with the audience. I mean, because this is your test screening. You need to see how your film reacted. You need to see the moments where they jump when you wanted them to, or when they laughed when you didn't expect it. You need to start to understand that relationship and what it says about your work and how do you apply that, what you learned going forward. I just love that experience, but I think it's something that's going away. It's just something we're losing. I have to pick and choose when I go see a film based on how many assholes I think are going to be in the audience,
Yeah, that's what's ruined the theater for me. I agree with you, is because everybody's in there on their phone. It's like you can't get off the phone for 2 hours for a picture that we don't pay, what is it, $16 a person and $500 for the popcorn?
Exactly.
I mean, it's ridiculous. And then people get offended when you don't take a phone call in a theater. No. The last 2 times I went to see a movie, somebody sitting right near me took a phone call, and I'm like, really, dude? Like, really? You had to take a phone call? You have text. Text them and tell them you will call them and walk out of the theater. I mean, it's like, and I try to see them on Sunday when nobody goes, because living in North Carolina, it's the Bible Belt. Nobody goes see horror movies midday on Sunday. So a Sunday matinee horror movie, you got less people in there.
Yep, I'm with you on that.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What I like to do if I see somebody on their phone, I'm far enough away from them, I'll throw M&Ms at them.
Jim says, do you all prefer physical media in movies and music? And I want everybody watching that to tell us, you know, do you guys prefer physical media, or are you guys all digital? How do you consume your movies? Drop a comment and let me know. I mean, nowadays, if I like something, I got to buy the physical, and I'm going to tell you why. You know, I believe everybody's entitled to opinion. I spent 10 years in the Marine Corps. You know, I believe that forget politics, but we're the land of free speech. If you want to say something, you have the right to say it, and I got the right to disagree with you. So it is what it is. But they canceling TV shows and movies. So if you love a movie and you just bought it on Amazon and you got a digital copy and you don't have a physical copy, or you love a TV show, they'll cancel it and then pull off the episode, and you'll never be able to see it again. And then they'll stop selling it just because somebody on Twitter got offended of something that was 20 years ago. You know, if they offended you from 20 years ago, they don't know no better for today's standards. You got to kind of give them a pass. And if you're watching horror, like somebody the other day hit me up, and they're like, I can't believe you like horror movies. They kill women. Okay. They kill everybody in a lot of horror movies. I mean,
it's usually the woman that survives to the end too. I mean, by the way,
there's movies. You know, High Tension is one of the best horror movies out there, in my opinions, and there's a female killer in it. It's like,
that's the great spoiler there. For anybody who hasn't seen it, Switchblade Romance. Yeah, that is a great one. Yeah, well, it's what goes back to what I was saying about media making media obsolete. It happens. And even before we got into the throes of cancel culture, where we are now, you can see this constant trend of moving to digital media. And that's because the companies have that instant control, because they can sell you today, okay, here's your digital copy. And then a year from now, they can say, okay, well, that copy is no longer valid, or we're not going to play it on Netflix, and it moves somewhere else. And you have no choice but to go to follow it if you don't have the physical media. And I literally fear for the days when they quit making all DVDs, Blu-rays, 4K, what have you, and just force us to buy streaming stuff, because then we're just going to be at their mercy. But I mean, yeah, I'm sure any horror fan is some kind of collector. Anybody watching this probably has movies from VHS to Laserdisc to DVD to Blu-ray. I mean, I've probably got The Shining in like every media that's ever been created,
Yeah. Steve said, I really enjoyed Behind the Sightings. I recommended that a little while back. I appreciate that, Steve. It's like a Blair Witch with clowns. Says, Sarge, have you seen House on Plant on Amazon Prime? I haven't. I'll have to put that on my list. Andrew says, all digital. Got to be careful with that. Like you said, if the other thing, and I didn't even mention this, hackers. If hackers can shut down a gas pipeline, or shut down financial transactions, and what if they hack into one of these VOD systems and you lose your digital? Now, if you're just renting them and coming back, then that's one thing. But if you're buying them on Amazon and you're expecting them to always be there, that might not be the case. Like you said, they could upgrade or change the app, or they're just like, whatever. Liz says music, movies, and books. I like physical. I like to read a physical book. I like to hold a book in my hand. I don't like the Kindles. I don't like that. I'm all digital. That's good.
Digital is convenient. I mean, that is the nice thing about it, like just being able to click on Shutter and find what you're looking for. But you just have no control when they take it out of the library, and that's the problem you have.
Yeah, and especially it only takes one producer to file a lawsuit, and they pull your digital copy. I mean, there's a lot of movies that got pulled off because there's a rights disagreements between, different people, and us as the fans, we get hurt. Steve says, I love physical media for special features. I agree on that.
Yeah, especially commentaries.
James says it has to be physical.
Yeah, there's something that modern audiences don't know, which is the great joy of going to the video store and looking at those rows and rows of covers just staring at you. I mean, looking at a red box with like 15 titles on it is not the same.
And Redbox isn't taking
it up.
Films.
Being able to pick it up, look at the artwork, flip it over, read the synopsis on the back. I mean, that's old school. And that's what I tell independent filmmakers too, is you have to think about all that. Everything has to sell your audience. It has to be, the title has to sell the audience. The image has to be intriguing to the audience. What is the synopsis on the back? All those things that has to be part of your total package of how you get people in the door to check it out,
And James says it has to be physical. Mark says they're canceling culture. Yeah. And I'm all about people can disagree with, they don't like this or they don't like that, but you don't have a right to take away, especially, movies are art. And unless it's hate speech, there's a difference between, speech that is hate speech and speech that you hate. Now, y'all think about that one for a few.
Mm-hmm.
Jim says, I hate digital. I buy CDs, vinyl movies as well. If you ever censor a movie, it's good to have a hard copy. I agree.
All the way.
Okay, they want me to ask you this question. It's a question I asked everybody on here. If you went to a space station for, let's say, 5 years and you could only take one movie, what would it be?
Only one. Out of horror films, it would probably be John Carpenter's Halloween. I mean, that film, I think, is just great. It's just fantastic. It speaks to me. Or either The Shining. Actually, let me change it to The Shining. I'll take The Shining. That was a film that freaked me out when I was younger. I've seen it in every medium. I've gone to see revival retro screenings on the big screen. Every version you see it in, you see something different in that film. So, yeah, I'll take The Shining.
Scott says, I love having a copy in hand. I don't buy as much as I did, but it's like old school rental stores. I like seeing the artwork and read the inserts. What I've done with physical media is I've stopped buying what I call the repackaged stuff, because Shout Factory and Screen Factory, they're putting together these box sets and their special features as YouTube videos is essentially.
Right.
And it's like really, that I know what this stuff costs to produce, and I know what your markup is, and you're not, Shout Factory Screen, y'all guys ain't gonna pimp me. I'd rather take that extra money and buy an independent film and support an independent filmmaker, and hopefully let's nurture the next Wes Craven, let's nurture the next, big thing in horror.
Yeah.
Than to just get another copy of Halloween if it's not going to offer me nothing new,
Yeah, that's one reason I love Rob Zombie, is because you can tell he's a fan because of the way he will pack his DVDs and Blu-rays with commentaries, behind the scenes and all that. Like, I really love the old House of a Thousand Corpses DVD, where it was interactive. That was one of my inspirations for Tales from Mutantville, where it's interactive, where on here, Mutisha comes out and talks to you. On House of a Thousand Corpses, you see Otis and Baby, and they all come out and talk to you. And that only exists on that DVD. When they transferred it to Blu-ray, they took all that stuff out. But I thought that was really great. It had this interactivity to it, and that's just great. It gives you extra value along with the movie.
And Ryan says, I watch entertainment on streaming platforms once in a while, but I always like physical CDs, DVDs to actually watch and listen. I agree with that, Ryan. Like, I'll watch it on streaming to make sure it's worth owning.
Yeah, sure.
I guess that's what I mainly do, because a lot of tricks that these independent filmmakers are doing, and I'm going to call you, I ain't going to call no names, but you guys know who you are. You'll get $100,000 for a movie, put $10,000 in marketing, $30,000 in marketing and packaging, pocket another $30,000, and maybe shoot the movie on 30. And you go to Walmart and you see these movies in Walmart and you pick them up and it looks like it was shot on a handy cam. But the DVD cover looks great. The back looks great, but the film looks like, and the trailer looks great. They spent all the money on the trailer. You know, I hate when they do that.
Yeah, if you're old school, like if you were in a video, if you walk through a video store, you probably crazy like me in that I like to rearrange my movies. You know, let's turn this one face out today. I want to see this artwork. Or you group all your Halloween films here. This is my slasher row. This is my Italian films. You know, here's the zombie films. You know, it's crazy stuff like that.
Andrew said, I watched Psycho Gorman Digital. Ever seen that one? Really enjoyed it. I never really did.
I haven't seen it. It's been recommended to me, but I haven't seen it, mainly just because I'm writing right now. When I write, I mainly focus on what I'm working on.
Yeah, I saw the trailer for that, and Shudder ain't really put much out that I really liked. And since AMC bought them, it seems like they went from being, hey, we're going to be the independent horror guys, to, hey, we're going to be AMC's lapdog.
I like Shudder just for Joe Bob. I mean, I give him all the props for that. You know, Mutantville, which was my production company, was a nod to the Drive-In Mutants and Joe Bob Briggs, because for so long, you know, we didn't have Monster Vision, and they finally came back. But I've been wanting to watch Psycho Gorman. I just haven't had the chance lately.
Yeah, I've been on, because I look at their library and I honestly don't think Shudder's worth the subscription. And they're not really very welcoming to independent filmmakers. They're hard to get into. And there's a lot of slimy producers out there that are like, oh, I can get you into Shudder. Just give me 20% of your film and I'll walk you in the door. And beware of people like that if you're a filmmaker. Says, I miss how movies no longer on DVD. You no longer have the directors or actors commentary. You know.
Yeah, commentaries are great, especially if you're an independent filmmaker. I mean, it's like film school. If you go back and watch those old Romero films or John Carpenter, you know, they'll walk you through, well, this is how we did this, this is how we did that.
Yeah, it says, Daniel says, physical media is life. I agree. Jim says, I like physical books as well. Read my first Stephen King novel.
Sure.
Shining. I like military history books as well, like you, Sarge. Yep, I like those. The packaging is art. I agree.
Yeah, definitely.
Andrea says, I miss video stores.
Yeah.
Video stores used to be the place to go on Friday nights. You could pick you up a nice young lady, get a phone number there, and get a date for Saturday night, you know?
That's right. Get everything you need.
You could buy the tubs of popcorn there.
Yeah, seeing the demise of video stores is very disheartening.
Yes, Halloween 78, Baby Shining is great too. And I'm going to predict this too tonight. We're seeing the demise of Redbox to streaming, because Redbox is not doing well. If you look at your local Redbox, they're not taking independent films no more. And that was one of the big earners for independent filmmakers. You get a movie in Redbox and you done sold 20, 30,000 units, you know, at least 15,000 to 10,000, you know, and they don't do returns like Walmart. So it's like, man, I've done something. I've done sold 10, 15,000 units at probably like $3 a pop. It's like, wow. Now they don't do independent films. You go to a Redbox, they don't.
You can still see a handful on Redbox. I know there are some films that we've played that have popped up on Redbox, like Patrick Ray's Nail Biter, and he has some others like I Am Lisa that pop up on there. And Patrick Ray is one of those guys. He's like lower tier, but he's ready to break through, and he always has pretty consistent backing and whatnot for his work.
Jim says, I remember looking at all the graphics on the covers of Halloween and probably trying to figure out which one to rent. Rent them all.
That was the best. And I mean, at the time, I was so young, I couldn't rent them. And so I would just look at the covers. You know, I mean, my parents wouldn't pick them up. You know, you would just look at the covers and make up these horrifying stories in your head. You know, that's something that Panos Cosmatos talks about, being younger and making up the stories, just looking at video boxes, and you see that kind of reflected in some of his work, like Mandy and Beyond the Black Rainbow.
And Andy Weiss is bringing back blockbusters. Yep, movie gallery too.
F blockbusters. We want the mom and pop stores. We want the old school where you could get Lucio Fulci on the bottom shelf and all that. Blockbusters, yeah, they killed the little stores.
Man, the mom and pop stores had the back room too.
That's right.
I was driving by to the other day, a place in North Carolina out in Spring Hope near Rocky Mountain. It's been about a month ago. And they still had the movie gallery sign up where the movie gallery used to be. Nothing's come in there since then.
Movie gallery, fortunately, is still keeping it alive in a few places. There were actually 2 within driving distance to me, but they both died over the past few years, which is a shame. But I really enjoyed going in to check them out. I mean, it's just its own thing. But everything's cyclical. Maybe we'll get another type of new physical media and something like, the video stores will come back.
Well, I was watching when you said, how you get as a filmmaker, you got to keep up with, how you distribute and the type of media. I was watching a documentary. It's a HBO. It's on Amazon. You can buy it. It's a 4-part miniseries called The Defiant Ones, and it's about Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre. And I know you're like, what in the world does this got to do with what we're talking about? It's got everything.
I love NWA.
Yeah. And what it was is it tells the story of how he went from being a rapper to a producer to a $3 billion deal with Apple, because Apple Music is really beat streaming service because they were the first one to get in streaming. They were the first ones to abandon CD sales before CD sales phased out and got into streaming music, and everybody thought they were crazy. And then when the streaming services started getting saturated, they made Beats headphones selling what was it, like $200 for a pair of headphones? I mean, this is ridiculous. But they were successful. Apple bought all that stuff for $3 billion. And it just showed you can see their thinking of how they kept up with it. And it made me think, what are we going to do in the movie industry?
Well, I'll tell you the most horrifying revelation about modern media is that everything is going to this. Okay. So we've got a generation that's raised on, they want to watch a film on this instead of on a big screen in the theater. That's the trend. That's where everything is moving to mobile. So, I mean, to me, that's horrifying because I want that big screen experience, but as a filmmaker, you should think about that. You think, well, how do I jump into mobile? How do I make something that's immersive on the small screen,
And do they want to watch a 2-hour movie, or do you think they have a short attention span and they just want to watch a 15, 20-minute YouTube video?
Both.
It's difficult because everybody knows, you can't put gore on YouTube because they'll block your video and cancel your account. Horror is the hardest thing to get out there via. You can't put horror on Facebook streaming because you show gore, they're not going to do it. To start your own streaming network is kind of expensive, so you can't really just plop it anywhere. I mean, you can do like a Vimeo private video or a Vimeo rentals, but it's difficult for horror to compete on the cell phone. And I agree with you. I have pretty much a theater in my house, so because I get some different looks when I go out because of the way I look. So I like to stay at the house, and I like to watch it on the big screen. But when I watch a movie, if it's a good movie, I don't look at my phone. And I think somebody asked me the other day, what do I think the difference between a good movie and a bad movie is? And I think the difference between a good movie and a bad movie is a really good movie will cause you to put down your phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't look at the time. You're just caught up in it, no matter what happens. It just carries you away. Well, the thing with promotion is you need to understand media. You need to understand social media. As independent filmmakers, don't put all your eggs just in the YouTube basket. Have a presence on YouTube. Have a presence on Twitter. House your films on Vimeo if that's what you have to do, and then find ways to direct people to that. Have a blog, have a Facebook page, so when people look for you, they can find you. Don't be one of those guys that's just invisible. You don't light your fire and hide it under a bushel. You have to make it available somehow, and promotion is its own thing. I mean, it sucks. I honestly hate it. I would rather just create stuff all the time, but if you create it and people don't know about it, you never get that kind of interaction. And I mean, that's one of the great things I think about with Mad Monster, and what we try to do with the Film Fest every year is just feature these great independent films and make sure people know about them.
Yeah. Norman says he'd like to take Seabiscuit. He would rent Seabiscuit.
Good movie. Seabiscuit's good movie.
Mark said, once I get done writing my first horror film, I'll be thinking to have either a cameo or narrator. Hit me up, messages. We'll see what it's about.
He would be a good killer.
Nah, I ain't no killer. I'm a nice guy. Jim says some thoughts and some streaming services offering movies the same time they're offering in theaters. I love the idea because not everybody wants to go to a theater. You have a lot of people, especially in the horror community, because people blow my inbox up all the time asking for advice, and I love to give it, don't get me wrong. But a lot of people in the horror community have social anxiety. And when you have severe social anxiety, it's hard to be in a theater, especially a packed theater full of strangers. So for that purpose, I like the idea of letting people be in there. But you also have assholes that will rent the movie and videotape it and upload it on websites for people to bootleg, which is robbing the filmmaker. So for that reason, I can kind of see the reason for a delay. Do I think it needs to be a 90-day or a 6-month window? No. But I could see a 30-day difference. Like, give it 45 days, release it in a theater, and then 45 days later, put it on VOD.
Yeah, well, to sell it, you have to have exclusivity. Otherwise, people aren't going to go out and see it. Now, as a consumer, I do like having the option of just watching it video on demand. I mean, especially now in the pandemic era, the last thing I want to do is sit in a theater with a bunch of coughing assholes. I mean, I don't want to be around them, But yeah, I mean, the theatrical experience is just where it's at. I mean, because you lose yourself. It's a ritual. Think about it. It's just like the thing about our modern society is we don't have coming of age rituals anymore. So we try to find them in any way we can, whether it's going to conventions or the ritual of going to the theater. I mean, you get everybody together, you go there, you buy all your stuff, your popcorn, your yum-yums, your bonbons, whatever. You walk down the dark hall, you enter the darkness, and you sit there waiting for this world to come up in front of you. And hopefully you just fall right into it. And unfortunately, that's where we are in the modern era, where people are just ruining it, where they won't put down their phones. They won't stop talking. They won't stop yelling or whatever. And they just want to ruin that experience.
Stick said the problem with older movies is that it's hard to find DVDs here in Norway. I agree, and it's hard to ship stuff out that way. I was in Norway years ago, and they had some great beer in Norway.
Shout out
to a town called Stavanger and another town called Trondheim, and I'm probably mispronouncing it, and I'm sorry, but they had some great beer, and they had some very attractive people in Norway. Very attractive people.
Yeah, it can be hard to find physical media.
She said same. Lola says, pick your journey horror movie. I doubt to be a part of that would be awesome. That'd be cool, but the problem is you must make bad choices to be in a horror movie.
Right.
So you'd have to make bad choices and to pick your journey.
Right. First 5 minutes, you see a shadowy figure walking towards you with a knife. What do you do? I get in the car and drive away. End of the movie. Yeah.
Daniel says, thoughts on extreme gore, nudity, and horror movies. What's the best way to do it? The problem is, and I'm just going to speak frankly, we're talking about horror. Horror is creating fear, scaring people, and killing. So death knows no race, sexual origin. Death is not discriminating. Death will kill everybody, So when I think about death and gore and nudity, it doesn't discriminate. Anybody can be nude, anybody can be butchered. Equal opportunity killers. And a lot of people don't agree with that. A lot of people are like, you kill too many women in horror movies. Well, if the story is sorority house murders, then of course there's going to be 20 million women getting killed. But you have producers and you have money men in Hollywood right now that are running around, and if you have a script where it doesn't have the equal amount of men, women, and different characters being killed, they don't want to make the movie. If you show women being killed by men, they don't want to make the movie because they don't want to offend. Good horror movies should offend. They've always done. They've always been shocking. They've always, hell, some of these horror movies we love, Texas Chainsaw Massacres, Friday the 13th, they made people puke in the theaters when they watched them. People had heart attacks when some of the Friday the 13th come out in theaters. So why are we being pansies when it comes to horror movies? So the only way we're going to get this stuff is underground. If somebody makes an extreme horror movie with gore that's realistic and any type of nudity, it's not going to get mainstream release. It's not going to get mainstream finance. So it's going to have to be some collectible DVD. They're going to have to get it out through the convention circuit. They're going to have to come out to a convention and show it and air what they can of it, because I don't think, a lot of conventions probably won't show a full-length movie if it's too brutal. But my thing is this, is if you're an independent filmmaker and you're going to do extreme gore, you need to make that crap look real. Mm-hmm. If you can't, then don't do extreme gore. And if the nudity doesn't further the script, then don't do the nudity. And if you're going to do nudity, have a little something for the men, have a little something for the women, have a little something for everybody. Don't, all of the legendary horror movies we love, there was a formula. People did drugs, they died. People had sex, they died. Am I telling anything wrong, Jamie? What do you think?
Oh, no, you're telling it like it is, Sarge. I talked to Clive Barker said that all horror is about our anxieties over sex or death. And that's basically what you boil it down to. So it really just depends on the film. If you're going to put extreme gore in it, does it serve the plot? Does it serve the story? And the story should be about the characters that are in it. We went through this era we always go through eras of formulaic films, okay? And they're usually copying the good one that came out that kind of started the wave, whether it was Halloween and the slasher films or Friday the 13th and the slasher films, but it should always serve the story. The same with the nudity. Roger Corman is the one who said, put nudity in early, because then people will think that they're going to get more later, and you don't actually have to do it. So you can just put it in early and go ahead and give it to them. But it should be always be equal opportunity. It just depends on the story. Give them just a little bit of everything. And at Mad Monster, we play crazy, gory stuff. We just do it after hours. We haven't been able to do it in this pandemic era because they cut off our screening time at 10 o'clock. But it used to be from like 7 and 9 all the way till 2 in the morning. We played the craziest, goriest. We played Ant Farm Dickhole one day. You can tell just from the title that was crazy. We'll play the craziest stuff. But during the day, we try to play the more general audience. Something that somebody could walk in with their kids and watch. It just depends on the time of the day. But if you're up at midnight wanting to watch a horror film, we're going to give you your money's worth. Hopefully, you're going to walk in with 2 beers in your hand and sit down and want to see something that's going to shock and disgust you.
Yeah, I mean, there's no polite way to kill somebody, and there's no polite way to portray that in a film. I mean, I'm sorry. I've been, like I said, I was 10 years in the Marines. I've been in the room when people been killed. And that's all I'm gonna talk about that. But it's like there's no polite way, and it's like these people that are like, oh, you offend me, you kill people in movies. That's what's a horror movie. It's fear. And Clive Barker, he's crazy. I mean, he's right on, and it is what it is type of deal. Um, Jim said, I miss the days of good horror series. I do too.
Monsters, Tales from the Dark Side. Yeah.
James says, any advice for music scoring out to independent filmmakers? Yeah, DM the page. I got some websites I can send to you that you can get some good music for free and use it to score your film, and then some other sites that you can buy some music at an affordable price.
Yeah, there's a guy on YouTube that does music for free. I mean, I'm trying to think of what his name is now.
That Impacto guy?
Yeah, I'm sure everybody's seen him. And also look in your community. I mean, there are like, bands that would love to be featured in a film,
You can actually,
or something,
you can actually charge people. Like what I've known people to do is, like, if you have bands that want exposure, either put them in your film and write a scene where there's a band in the film playing at a club. And a lot of times they'll come in and, like, they'll have a hookup at a club. They'll have a hookup for a party, and they could be part of the movie. But if you're just looking for score and stuff, DM the page. I got some websites I'll send to you.
Yeah, hard to find. Yeah.
Can't wait to get back to the horror community at the expo. Yep. Friday the 13th, the series. Yep. Freddie had a series. But I mean, people are pansies now when it comes to, some of the stuff. But I mean, you have American Horror Stories that's now on Hulu. That's, some of it was decent. Some of it was just horrible.
Yeah, some of it was decent. We also had the Masters of Horror in the mid 2000s. That was pretty good. Some of those were better than others. I love John Carpenter's episode for that, Cigarette Burns.
Jay says, have there ever been a horror movie that went too far in your opinion? Anything dealing with kids, I'm uncomfortable with.
There's some that are just in bad taste, like one I'll name, like Murder Set Pieces. I thought had some kind of bad taste involved in it. Like there wasn't so much of a story, and it was just meant to be just meant to be shocking. I mean, which is okay. You want works that are transgressive, mind you. Okay. I mean, like I was talking about earlier, horror is on this big crazy spectrum where, it takes something like Texas Chainsaw Massacre to affect some people, and other people, all they can take is like Halloween. It's basically gore-less. Well, the original TCM is as well, but yeah, it just everything is different. Just depends on the story and the tone that you're trying to create. But yeah, like Murder Set Pieces had some nods to like Nazi names for the producers and just some kind of tasteless things in it. But there are a lot of people that really dig it. I mean, but that's an example to me. And like some films that I won't watch, like a Serbian film, stuff like that. You hear about things that are just really stupid, and you're just like, I'll just pass on that. I don't need to watch it.
Yeah, I don't even consider that horror. I mean, the Serbian film, I think it's stupid. I think they just tried to come up with something to market. We get these last few comments. We're kind of running out of time. Lola said, that's what if you do that type of movie, it would never be a good choice, always bad choices. That's true. Daniel said, that's well said, Sarge. Thank you. I appreciate that. Jim, last question. Jim said, best Friday the 13th kill of all time. What's your favorite Friday the 13th kill?
For me, I always go back to the sleeping bag kill in part 7. I mean, that's one of my favorites. I think they had perfected the formula by that time. I love the whole Jason versus Carrie kind of aspect to it. And the sleeping bag kill where he just grabs that girl and just bangs her against the tree. That was great.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was talking with Kane, and I was like, what's your favorite kill? And that's what Kane said his favorite kill was too. And I think that was pretty good. And the fact that it was like some type of holographic thing, I
Oh,
thought
well,
that.
they homaged it in what was it? Jason Goes to Space, Jason 10, where he did a double a double sleeping bag kill in that one. Yeah.
I like that one. Um, any last words, Jamie?
Uh, no, just definitely thank you all for supporting Mad Monster over the years. Thank you to all the people that I've talked to that have come in and out of the festival. I always enjoy talking to people that have questions about films and filmmaking. Thank you to anybody that's ever supported any of my own individual work. If you like any of the things that I do or say, you can follow me over on Twitter at JTMCROBERTS. You can find me there or on Facebook. And yeah, we'll see you at the next Mad Monster.
We appreciate you guys watching. Be sure to tag somebody if they needed to watch this and they weren't on here. Like it, share it in any horror groups you're in, or share it in any groups that are not horror that you think you could shock people in. I don't care. Be sure to like and subscribe us on YouTube channel. We guys appreciate you guys. Y'all guys take care. Hope y'all have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. Sergeant Horror, Jamie from Mad Monster. We're out.